If you are finding yourself in a relationship where you are realizing, wow, this is the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. I feel so safe. I feel so seen. I feel so held. I really trust my partner. And you are noticing that there is a little bit of tension coming up around sexuality because you are discovering that you don't know what you want in bed and you don't know what to ask for and you don't have like an opinion of what gets to be done in the bedroom. Like if your partner is genuinely asking you, like, what do you want? Like how can I be of service to your pleasure? Like what can I do for you? And you are having a hard time responding because you actually don't know. You actually don't have an idea. This podcast episode is for you. And I am very honored and just want to celebrate you for hitting play on this because I used to be where you were at. I used to be in your shoes. And this is something that I have worked on myself through the last 6 years as of the time of this recording. And now that I am fully trained as a sex, love, and relationship coach, specializing in female sexuality and sexuality for vulva bodied folks, I'm giving you my insights. Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen within your relationships, your work, and most importantly, with the relationship with yourself. In this podcast, we talk about all things self-love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and more. Hi, I'm your host, Celia Antonio, and I'm a women's sexuality and self-love coach, a mindfulness expert, and your cheerleader for your most grounded and expansive self-expression. You can connect with me on Instagram at selfexpressedbabe, and for all of my guest episodes, there will always be links in the show notes so that you can find them online. I give my deepest thanks to you for being here and spending your precious time with me today. Now let's begin our journey. And we are going to go through 5 tips. I have 5 tips written down, but if you've been here before, you know that sometimes I like to add things in or go on tangents. I don't write anything down, and all I have is a little bullet list of these 5 things I want to share with you. And before we dive in, I will ask you, if you haven't done so already, to leave a rating and a review on whichever podcast platform you are listening to this episode on, or if you are listening to YouTube, to give it a thumbs up and a subscribe. So, the first thing I want to start with is this belief that if you adapt this belief, if you try it on, it can be very, very helpful. I found it very helpful. And it comes from the tantric philosophy. And this belief is that everything is divine. And when you apply this belief of everything is divine to yourself and um, your sex life has a lot of layers to it. You know, there's your body, your relationship, sensations, emotions, desires, your thought. There's so many things. And if you can try on this belief that everything is divine, the reason why I wanted to start with it is because it can help release a lot of shame. Um, there can be a lot of shame tangled up within sexuality, especially if there are certain things that you like that maybe go against how you are out in everyday life. Like some people really like to be, they really like pain play, or they really like to be like talked to in a disrespectful way only in the bedroom. And like people feel shame about that, but it's not, it's divine. It's okay. Like if you have that, it's okay. There's no point in shaming or rejecting any part of yourself because it's only going to create more more of this kind of like how do I want to word it? When you shame a part of yourself, you reject that piece of you. And then there's this like split that happens. And because there's this piece of you that's gone, there's like an empty space there. And then you have to put on this like kind of like fake persona in a way. This is why a lot of us in childhood have lost parts of our personality because they weren't, like celebrated as like they weren't celebrated and held and seen by our parents. So we reject those parts of us. And it happened so long ago that eventually, like, we don't know who we are anymore because we've been being this fake person for such a long time. So that's why you can find yourself in a space now where like you don't even know what you like anymore because you've been playing along with what it is that you think you should want because you've been rejecting parts of you or maybe like for a lot of women at least in like the women I've come across and also like the way that I was raised there was kind of this pressure, growing up in LA and going to high school in LA, there was a lot of pressure to like have sex and to have sex before you were like even ready. And so there would be a rejection of your innocence and a rejection of like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. And then like you never have an open conversation. You go into a sexual experience not really knowing what to expect or what to prepare for and without any boundaries. And yeah, so letting all of that, like if that is a part of your past, letting all of that be okay by being like, it's all divine. My past is divine. All my sensations are divine. All my emotions are divine. Everything I desire is divine. Allowing it all to be okay is really going to help with your true desires coming forward because there's no more pretending anymore. There's no more trying to control who you are, and you're just allowing yourself to be who you are. You're just allowing yourself to be, and your truth is bound to come forward in that. And yeah, I think this thought of everything is divine will also help you with any kind of like healing you move through, which is also why I wanted to start with this. I think it's like a very foundational belief to try on and see how it works for you. And of course, you can, reword it in a different way. If everything is divine isn't a statement that aligns with you, you can reword it in a way where it, means the same thing. Anything that's going to be supportive for you to allow yourself to welcome whatever is true in the moment. Let's move on to the second piece I wanted to share. The second thing I wanted to share is something that I discovered in 2020, I believe. And it's called the felt sense. And I discovered this through my journey with anxiety. Like I wasn't even purposely looking for stuff to help me within the realm of sexuality. I was purposely looking for help with anxiety. And I remember being on this call, and the person running the call, it was a group call. It was on whatever whatever that social media platform was that kind of blew up for a bit. And then I don't know if it's still around where people just go into rooms and talk. I completely blanked out on what that's called, but you probably know what I mean. It's like just rooms where you can go into a room and it's like a social media, but it's audio only. And there was this guy who was a doctor who every week would do a talk about anxiety and like walk you through a practice and like you can raise your hand and share something or ask a question. And he had us feel where in our body do we feel anxiety. And then he had us like go even deeper by like describing if it has a shape, a color, a texture, if they're like really diving into describing where in the body it is, like what it feels like, and all of that. So that was my first introduction into that. And then when I started taking courses on sacred sexuality and just getting more connected with my body and taking programs about like self pleasure for women, there was a practice in one of the courses that was called the felt sense practice. And all we had to do was it was a meditation, kind of. You're talking out loud, so not really, but you're sitting and you are connecting with your body, and then you're speaking out loud what exactly it is that you feel and where. And to kind of explain this more, I guess I'll like do that for a minute or so to kind of for you to be able to see what it is. Okay. And I'm going to make it easier to follow along with by doing it from starting at the tips of my toes and moving all the way up my body. So on the tips of my toes, I feel this like tingly, it's like a soft, tingly feeling. And then right at the like pad of my foot, right behind the toes, I feel a warmth. I feel that there's more pressure towards the inside of my foot rather than the outside. Um, I can feel the heel of both my feet are like very pressed into the ground right now. And they feel kind of, hmm, I don't know what that feeling is. I'm trying to find the best way to describe it. And this is a part of the felt sense practice too. Noticing a feeling and trying your best to just hold it. And even if you can't articulate it in words, just holding it, allowing it to be there. It feels like a sparkly feeling in my right foot, and then it feels very light in my left foot. Okay, moving along. In my knees, I can feel the light, very light pressure of my hands touching my knees. I feel the softness of the fabric against the skin on my knees. And then I feel this grounded, warm feeling in my hips and my pelvis. I feel a little bit of constriction in my lower back. There's like a little bit of tightness there, right in like right on either side of my spine. My belly feels really full. I just ate a salad before hitting record. I'm also feeling like a slight pulsing feeling in my belly. It's like I can feel my heartbeat in my belly, and it feels very comforting. Yeah, so that's all I'll do, just so that the whole podcast isn't moments of silence. But some helpful tips with this felt sense practice is firstly what I mentioned about just holding a sensation and being aware of it, even if you can't articulate it. And yeah, just really taking the time to be with it, because more sensations will come up as you go along. And also, a piece that I found very helpful is realizing that numbness is also a sensation. So if I tune into my legs and I don't feel anything there, rather than going to this place of like, oh, I can't do this practice, or like I'm doing it wrong. If I just say my legs, my thighs are feeling numb right now, I can make that okay. And I think the beauty of this practice, it can weave in that first belief that I told you to try on of everything is divine. I think if you combined that everything is divine and just like being with each sensation, speaking them out loud, it creates a lot of trust and safety within your own body. And I think that's a very important piece when we're talking about, finally being with a sexual partner that is actually interested in your needs and in your desires and having just so much struggle with like knowing what it is that you want. Because maybe in your past it wasn't safe to know what you want, especially for a lot of women and a lot of people who grew up socialized as women. Sexuality has historically been labeled as this thing that like women should not be. And when it comes to having deeper and more connected sexual experiences, trust and safety is a must. And if you don't have trust and safety within yourself, it's going to be really difficult to bring trust and safety within sexual relationships, even if the person you are currently in a relationship with is someone that you feel safe with and is someone that you trust. If you don't have that internal trust and safety with yourself, it's going to be very hard to receive their safety. And it's going to be really hard to receive the relationship. And that's why you can get into this place of like, oh my God, they're asking me for what I want in bed. I don't know how to answer. I don't know. And it can, for a lot of us, trigger this like anxiety of like, oh shit, the relationship is going to end. Like I'm going to ruin this. And just take a breath if that's you and feel into your heart and know that this is all divine. Everything is divine. And you deserve to have a beautiful, connected, safe sexual relationship. Um, okay, I'm going to move on to the third thing I want to cover. And the third thing I want to cover is body love. And I think body love is very crucial for women, very crucial also for non-binary beings, because there's a lot of boxes put on women, and then people who are non-binary have to kind of like push against what society has told them who they should be. And so with body love, I think body love is also very important because, we live in a world of capitalism. And unfortunately, we have been trained to think that something is wrong with our body or with ourself, but a lot of times our body, just so that there can be a need created for like a diet pill or a gym membership. I mean, gym memberships, I'm not ragging on going to the gym. It's fine, but I'm just saying that I think we've been trained a lot to reject our bodies and think that there's something wrong just for the sake of people selling things to be able to sell things. And I'm not talking about everybody. I'm mainly talking about like bigger corporations. And another thing with body love too is the beauty standards are always changing. And I think that's another way that kind of like consumerism is really driven, is when a body standard or beauty standard changes, then, oh, it just created all this demand for a BBL or a whatever the other things are. I don't know. For some sort of plastic surgery procedure or drug or whatever the thing is. Um, yeah. And, body love, going back to that piece of like feeling internally safe and feeling a trust inside of your body. Body love is very important for that, because you get to just fully accept the body that you live in right now as your body is in this moment, like not waiting until you get to whatever body goal you have, like whatever, like weight loss, weight gain, or like surgery or whatever it is. It's body love is about loving your body right now. And body love is also about loving your body for more than what your body looks like. And a perspective I really love to try on, and I'll link in the show notes to an old like free class I did. I think it was in 2022 called Body is Your Baby. Um, where in there I shared about this perspective. Um, I mean, maybe if you listen to this podcast, you might not need to listen to that show. It's not a show. It's a masterclass, and it has practices, like practices you can download as well, and it's all free. So might as well go sign up for that because you'll have the practices and the replay. But no, I forgot what I was saying. Uh there it is. Is this perspective of seeing your body as this baby that you get to take care of. And now being someone who is in more child-free spaces, I can see how saying that is probably not helpful for everyone. Because some people really don't like babies, and like telling them like, oh, it's this baby you have to take care of. They'll be like, what? No, no, thanks. So only try this on if it helps you. But for me, the reason why it helped is I first came across this belief first popped into my head when I was around 25 or 26, and I was babysitting for this family of three, and the youngest was 4 months old. Her name was Hannah, and just being with Hannah and being, present with her and tending to her needs and like attuning to what it is that she needed and all of that made me realize just how sweet it is that the body that I live in now, even though it was 25 years old at that time and here's this 4 month old, has the same needs and the same desires as this baby. Like there are these like primal needs that you are born with that never go away. And so trying on that thought of my body as a baby really helped me have a lot more sweetness towards my body. So if that helps you, if that thought helps you, that belief helps you, feel free to try that on and feel free to watch the free class that I have about that. And body love is also about, like I mentioned earlier, it's about going deeper than what your body looks like. Your body is, the home you live in. Your body is like right now, I ate a salad before hitting record, and my body is digesting that salad without me having to consciously like think about that or consciously do anything or make any effort. And it's all just like happening on its own. And the like veggies and dressing are like being the nutrients are being pulled from that, and then those nutrients are being used to like replace my skin cells and replace all of the cells in my body and give me the ability to be able to have energy to speak and to think and to record this podcast right now. Like it can go so deep if you really sit and contemplate on like everything that your body is doing for you on a daily basis. Um, yeah, what else did I want to share? I think the contemplation piece is very important because it brings kind of like this, for me, it's kind of like a spiritual exploration of like, okay, today I'm going to think about what is my body? Like, what is it? Like, what truth is going to come through today if I sit and contemplate about what my body really is, or if I sit and ask for some sort of truth to reveal itself to me. Um, yeah, so to practice body love, I really like mirror work. You can look in the mirror and just take a moment to be present with your body and it's really easy to notice the flaws. So see if you can purposely pick out what you do like. And when flaws do come up, if judgment does come up, if any rejection comes up, see if you can counter that rejection by first seeing your rejection as divine. So going back to that first tip, seeing your rejection as divine and kind of ending that habit of rejecting that part of your body by taking a moment to connect with it. So, for me, something that will come up in the mirror that I reject. So, I am 75% German and 25% Greek, which means my body grows a lot of hair. And one of the things that I see in the mirror sometimes that I reject is the hair that grows on my upper lip. I do wax it every like maybe 2 months or so. My hair doesn't really grow back too fast. But when it's time, when it comes to be time to wax and it's visible to me in the mirror, I definitely reject that part. And it used to be a big point of embarrassment for me when I was younger. And so to give the example of how you would do the practice, like I would see the hair, I would notice myself rejecting it. Um, Me personally, I like to just kind of have this moment where I'm like, huh, how silly. Like I'm like rejecting my hair on my upper lip while I'm like on a rock careening around a ball of fire. Like this is hilarious. Like this is like my problems are so small. Um, but then giving my body a compliment, specifically giving my upper lip compliments and love and saying, you are worthy no matter what you look like. You are beautiful no matter what you look like. You deserve love and all those things. So, yeah. And then just like we're also really honoring everything that your body has been through can be a good one. And even taking a moment to have a meditation practice where you make space to have a conversation with your body, where you kind of sit, ground yourself, connect with your breath, and then just ask your body, like, hey, I'm here, I'm listening. What do you have to share with me today? And seeing if anything comes up and maybe having a back and forth conversation. Um, I'm including so much in here. I didn't realize I would talk this much about body love. Body love is a big like passion of mine. As someone who grew up kind of always rejecting my body for various reasons. Um, so I feel like I have like way more way more tips to share. I'll share one more. For me personally, and for anyone who gets a cycle still, like if you have a monthly period, um, I find it very helpful to track what my inner season is, and I'm always updating it on my calendar. I'm not really doing it super accurately because the only accurate way would be to take your basal something temperature. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what it is, but there's something about your temperature changes very subtly throughout the month. And I think it goes up when you ovulate, perhaps. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Again, I'm not a scientist. Go do that research on your own. But what I mean to say is that I am always aware of what phase in my cycle I am in. And I actually have it on my digital calendars. And then I use that to schedule things. And I've learned over the years, I've done the tracking for like 3 years now at this point. And I've learned over time when during the month, what time of the month is it best for me to have like a lighter schedule and to not have like any big obligations or responsibilities. And it's going to be different for everybody. At first, when I started it, I would just make my schedule light during my period. And then over time, I realized like it's actually better for me to make the schedule lighter right before when I'm in my luteal phase and when I just hate everybody. And then also for I think something that's also very fun is I have a friend who's a coach who during her ovulation phase, she will clear her schedule of like work so that she can go out and have like adventures and go to like ecstatic dance or like any events to kind of just like really bask in that um, magnetism and radiance that comes from being in your ovulation phase. So there's so many different ways to do it, but I think no matter what you decide to do with it, I think it's very loving and beautiful to just pay more attention to your body. And if you are someone who gets a monthly cycle, to just be aware of when that's happening and being aware of the internal shifts and changes in hormone levels. And yeah, I could keep talking about body love for a while. Okay, the fourth one, we'll move on to the fourth one. The fourth one, to really just uncovering what it is that you want in bed, is to explore what it is that you learned about sex and about sexuality and also about pleasure from your upbringing and from your past. And it doesn't have to be like when I say past, it doesn't have to be childhood. It can even be like what you've learned in the last month about sex that you might be holding onto as a belief. However, the older stuff, like what you've learned from your parents, your family, your peers, siblings, school, religion, media, society, all the places, if you can take the time to just really explore that, it might reveal to you, like, oh, this is why I get really triggered when my partner makes prolonged eye contact with me during sex. Just as an example, um, it can really help. Or it can be like, oh, I believe that self pleasure is bad because of all these things that religion told me. And I actually like, I don't think that's helpful. So it can be very revealing to see what it is that you are playing out as true. And then from there, you can decide like, what is it that I want to believe instead? Like, what am I going to be doing? Not doing, but what am I going to? Okay. When you have a belief about sexuality, sex, and pleasure, then when you go into life, when you move in life, when you make decisions, you are making decisions from the perspective point of those beliefs being true. So once you have uncovered what it is that you've learned, then you can take a moment to decide what is it that I want to believe instead so that I can move forward in my sex life from those beliefs. All right, I'm getting a phone call. All right, we're back. I got a phone call. And so my train of thought was lost. I know we were talking about sexual story, and I'm just going to assume that I said enough. And we will just move straight on to the last little tip that I wanted to share with you. And that tip is regularly practicing self-touch and self-pleasure. And when I say self-pleasure, I do mean masturbation. And I also mean like actively looking for what is pleasurable in your life that, has nothing to do with sex, like slowing down with a good meal and just really savoring in all of the flavors. Or self-touch, can also be You can gain a lot of pleasure from just like very lightly taking your fingertips and really lightly stroking your arms, for example, or your legs or your face. And and I think that's the important piece with self-pleasure or masturbation is knowing that it does not have to include penetration whatsoever. And it is very important to listen to your body's no. And only when you can listen to your body's no is when I think you can get a true yes. And for female sexuality specifically, and for bodies that are progesterone and estrogen based, estrogen and progesterone. I hope I'm saying it right. Again, not a scientist. I could Google it and figure out how to say it correctly, but you know what I'm saying. Um, our bodies take more time to warm up, and we're not like, people with penises suddenly they're just hard and they're ready to go. But female sexuality and people in vulva, people with bodies with vulvas, it takes more time for us. And within self pleasure, it's important to have that be a space where you can really slow down. And I think this can be a new and radical thing to try on for a lot of us because there's so many misconceptions in the media and so much lack of education with female sexuality. And even in, porn, and even in, just shows like I'm thinking of Bridgerton, where like two co-stars are just like kissing and then like suddenly they're having sex, and it's like there's no way that she was ready already. Like it takes time, and when you develop your own self-pleasure practice and you learn to take that time with your body, you will then bring that same energy into partnered sex. Um, you will also get to know what you like. You'll know what you like. And there's something about a self-pleasure practice that, in my opinion, I think it just makes you more vocal, and you become more of an advocate of what your body needs. I'm going to choose to believe that it's because your pussy is then talking, and she is the one who's like taking over when it comes to sex and sexuality, and having conversations about sex and sexual boundaries. She's like, no, I want this and I don't like that. This is a yes for me. That's a no. I'm open to this. Maybe we can try it, but we'll play it by ear. We'll see how it goes. I feel like she comes online more, she or they comes online more and just feels more empowered to speak for you. That's what I choose to believe. I'm not saying that that's like what you need to believe, but that's me. And also, for me personally, like the biggest thing that I found very surprising with adapting a pleasure practice is how healing it was for my inner child. Because as a child, children are very curious about their bodies, and a lot of children will discover touching their private parts and will discover that it feels good, and then they will do that. And that was me. I wouldn't be able to tell you when the first time was because it's just for as long as I can remember. And at the same time, I don't know where it came from, probably religion. I felt a lot of shame about it at a certain point. I remember once I was a little older, when I was like around 13, just feeling so guilty that I had just pleasured myself and just like crying in the mirror and like making a promise to myself that I was never going to do that ever again. And the only reason why I felt that was because of shame. And I think the shame for me came a lot from the media, from society and peers. Like I grew up, the environment that I grew up in, it was very common for boys to talk about masturbation, but like with girls, it was like, oh no, I don't do that. Like that's disgusting. I don't do that. And I also was raised with my parents weren't very religious, but my stepdad, who raised me as his has his own, my bonus dad, my second dad, his family was very religious, and I feel like somehow those very oppressive sexual beliefs for women like somehow sunk into me. Um, so when I started doing a regular self-pleasure practice and I would feel these like parts of my inner child, or like sometimes a memory from when I was younger would come up because of, feeling a sensation that felt familiar because I'd felt it when I was a younger girl. When that would come up, it would be an opportunity for me to really just hold my inner child and honor her and celebrate her and just love her and let her know that like this entire time when she thought she was doing something bad and dirty and wrong and thought that something was wrong with her, letting her know that this entire time like that was not true, and this entire time she was never bad, she was never wrong, she was never dirty, like she was always a magical little girl who was just innocently exploring her body and exploring your body. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think for girls and people who are raised, socialized as girls, it's very easy for us to forget that our bodies, our pleasure, and our sexuality belongs to you. It is yours. It is not somebody else's. And a lot of us are raised in environments, and our society still has echoes of this where women's sexuality is kind of seen as this thing that like belongs to a husband or belongs to a partner, or like it belongs to someone other than the person who's living in the body. And yeah, so I found coming to self-pleasure practices to be so healing for my inner child, and I really highly recommend it. And I know it's very triggering. It can be very triggering for someone to tell you to go into a pleasure practice. And so I want to leave you with firstly a course that I have that I think is a really great place to start with pleasure practice. It's a breast massage course. I'll tell you more about it in the end, because before I tell you about that, I want to just give you some tips on like if you're starting out with a pleasure practice. And firstly, I would say is let it be okay if you are only available for 5 minutes. Let it be okay if you are only available for like touching your body without penetration and just like cupping your vulva, for example, or just like cupping your breasts, or just like holding your, like getting naked and like hugging your naked body, or like stroking your arms with your fingertips. Like, let it be okay what little thing you do have the capacity for, because it's very important to not force yourself. Um, I think, for for people who grew up as women and who still identify as women, like we're grown, we're kind of like trained to not slow down and to force ourselves to go through with sexual experiences, even if we don't like it. And so it's very important to not bring that same habit into self pleasure. And so really honoring and knowing that your practice is still working, even if you only had 5 minutes of capacity for it before you felt like, okay, this is too much. I got to stop. It's very important to listen to yourself when you feel like, oh, this is too much. I have to stop. And it's very important to be able to be completely present. And if you find yourself like disassociating, um, you're no longer present. And that's when you could run into like re traumatizing yourself. And I would say if coming to a self pleasure practice for you always brings up this like disassociation and this kind of like traumatic feeling, I would highly recommend to go and work with a therapist because you deserve to experience sexuality in a way that feels nurturing and nourishing and energizing and loving. And I want that for you. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here recording this podcast because I want every I want every person on this planet to, oh my God, I'm getting emotional now. Like, hold on, I need a moment. Mm. I want every person to know that their sexuality is beautiful and holy and sacred because for so long it's been shamed. And I have this theory that, like, because sexuality has been shamed for so long, that's why we have a lot of the destruction and just like darkness that we have right now. I mean, yeah, darkness will always, exist, but I think the more people can kind of like dismantle the shame around sex, the more just like self-expressed everyone will be. And the more self-expressed everyone is, like it's just better. Like if you feel safe and secure and nourished and loved within your sexuality, beginning with your own self-pleasure or masturbation time, that ripples then out. It ripples out not only in the bedroom and with sexual partners, like it ripples out into every area of your life, which is why I'm so passionate about this. And it really is why I'm here because I went through that journey myself and I was like, oh, people really need this. Like the world really needs this. And in case you have not followed my journey from day one, I started my business in 2020 as a graphic designer. I never even fathomed becoming a sexuality coach. And even when I signed up for a sexuality coaching training in 2022, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I knew from an intuitive place I had to be there, but my mind was like, this is terrifying. What am I doing? Why am I here? Meanwhile, my heart and my intuition was like, this is the work that people need. I'm really called to this. Like, I need to pass this knowledge and these tools on. Um, yeah, so it's very important to listen to your yeses, listen to your nos, to take yourself out of a practice if you need it, to go and get the support of a therapist if you need it. And a great place to start a pleasure practice is to start with breast massage. And I have a breast massage course. It's called Heart Magic. And this course is all about changing your relationship with your breasts. As of the time of this podcast being released, I'm currently planning a live round of my breast massage course of Heart Magic. And what that means is you will have access to not only the course, but we will come together in live calls where we will have circles where we will share our experience. We will have on Zoom. Zoom has this really good feature where you can do it webinar style so that no one's camera is on except for the person hosting the call. And we will do that to go through some of the practices together. And I love breast massage. Breast massage has been just like a life-changing practice for me. I've been practicing it since 2021. And I think it's a very important practice to develop confidence, develop self-love, and just really sink into your radiance, your magnetism, and to really just fall in love with your body. And what's different about Heart Magic versus other breast massage courses that I see out there is there isn't just one breast massage practice, and the content in there is not just here's how to do a breast massage, like here's the steps, and now let's do it. There's also a lot of resourceful content in there to really hold you in the process. Um, because I know that with pleasure practices, being someone who myself has gone on this journey, it can get very triggering. And so it's very important to have some foundational mindfulness practices. And so the felt sense that I talked about in this episode earlier, the felt sense, like there's a whole lecture on the felt sense. There's a guided practice to follow along with the felt sense. Yeah, so it's way more in depth than any other breast massage courses I have seen from doing research and seeing what else is out there. And the live round we will start on December 5th, 2024. So if you want to take some time this winter to really go inward and really change the relationship with your breasts, with your body, maybe this entire podcast episode really resonated with you and you want to lean into developing a pleasure practice for yourself, breast massage is a really good place to start. And so I invite you, if you're feeling that call, to check out the link in the caption or the show notes to my course called Heart Magic, where you can sign up. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I hope that it was helpful. If you found it helpful and you maybe have a friend that you want to share it with, I would really appreciate if you shared this podcast with them. And yeah, I will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Openly Spoken. I know that there's an abundance of content online, so I really appreciate you giving me your ears today. If this episode shifted something for you, please share this with a friend and/or write us a podcast review if you're listening to this on iTunes so that more people can find this. If anything shifted for you from this episode that you want to have a conversation about, I would love to hear from you. Just send me a DM over on Instagram at selfexpressbabe, and that is in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.